You're watching the best clips from the Journey Within podcast with me, Shobha Rana. With this podcast, learn to take charge of your life and master your inner world. Don't miss to press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Why do some people feel a lot of certain emotion? Like, why do some people feel a lot of fear? Or why do some people feel a lot of excitement or craving? Why does that pattern in their brain get triggered or is on trigger so much all the time?
The answer to why does anybody do anything is that because it has worked for them. That's it. So whatever you are as a person, you are because till now in your life, somehow or the other, that has worked for you.
Basically, pattern recognition in your brain.
Pattern recognition. So if there is a person who's always angry, it's because anger has worked for that person. Now, whether it has actually worked or he feels like it has worked but is actually not working is up for debate. But if somebody is a rash driver, they feel that this has worked for me. I always get to where I want to go faster. No problems. It'll only be a problem when he crashes the first time, and that might be a fatal crash. But his brain is not thinking like that. His brain is thinking this is the best way to live. Similarly, people with anger issues, their brain has somehow figured out that pattern that if somebody's annoying me, the best response is anger. And it has worked for them.
So the repetition of that response keeps
Correct.
happening and you become this personality who's always in anger.
You grow into that. And they will change the day it stops working for them.
So how does one break out of that? Do you break out of it because of rewiring your neurology with medicines, or do you break out of it because of some learning of more psychology and human behavior and getting into therapy?
So what you're saying is, how do you rewire those patterns? How do you rewire those networks? And both of your answers are correct. You can do it through medication and you can do it through something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which
CBT.
is, CBT. So you are retraining your brain into realizing that maybe this is not working for me.
This is the psychology aspect of it, right?
Correct.
And the one that you talked about earlier, the medicinal aspect of it, that will help you release certain chemicals in your mind that will, hamper the activity of that neural network.
Correct.
Is
Either
that correct?
reduce certain chemicals or
Increase
increase
the
certain other
others.
chemicals to just help you nudge your way in that direction. So I've always maintained that medicines in the right amount, in the right circumstances, can be life-saving. Absolutely, because there are some moments where we are not in control. We may not do what is the best thing for us. In those moments, medicines do make a big difference. But for long-term sustenance, it has to be always associated with some kind of CBT, some kind of behavioral therapy. You cannot rely only on medicine to
There's
get
a whole
better.
stigma around, especially the mental health related medicines, right? People don't want to take them and they feel that they're put on them for too long, sometimes for even 2 years, 3 years. You're just on, it's an ongoing process, right?
Yeah.
So people kind of want to quit on their own and then see some repercussions and then come back on the medicine. So what are your thoughts there? What should one do if you're too scared of this whole process, right?
Yeah. It's not an easy question to answer. And the reason is that mental health as a science is still evolving. We as a scientific community, we are still figuring out what is the best way to handle anxiety, depression, bipolar. What is the best way? We know that some medicines work. We are not entirely sure why they work. We have theories. CBT works, behavioral therapy works. We are not entirely sure how much we can rely on them when it is an acute case.
True.
And so because there is so much of subjectivity here, literally every person is a unique case. It's very difficult to give a generalized answer that if you have depression, you have to take this medicine for 3 months and you'll be fine. It's not like malaria.
Mental health issues are so much on the rise.
Correct.
And this is like an epidemic that we are already in. It's not like we're going to face it in next 10 years. It's
Correct.
already as worse as it is becoming now.
And it's a double-edged sword because now we are dealing with half information. So now an entire generation of kids has access to the terminologies of depression and anxiety without really knowing what it is. And so there is another epidemic of self-diagnosis. I feel like I am depressed. I feel like I have anxiety disorder. Now these are important terms. So there is a certain process in order to be diagnosed with that, there are certain criteria. And while I accept that those criteria are evolving and they are by no means perfect, I also feel like there is a danger in self-diagnosis. So now it becomes even more urgent
Of
to
course.
teach all the kids about what is normal, what is acceptable, what is not.
Yeah, actually, the terms like depression, anxiety have become so casual in the usage. Even the terms like bipolar.
Yeah.
If you're happy a day and if you're sad and you're angry the other day, people have started using these terms so casually, as if these terms mean nothing and you can self-diagnose it just like that. And
And the challenge is that they are part of the spectrum. So we do have those situations where we feel sad one moment and happy another moment, and that is okay. It is that same thing taken to a pathological level that makes it bipolar disorder. So we need that nuance to understand that sadness is okay, depression is not. Anxious is okay, anxiety disorder is not. Mood swings are okay, bipolar is not. So this difference has to be understood. And that is when you know when to ask for help and when to not.
What are the different stages of understanding this? How do you understand that you are, let's say, at a stage 1 of being anxious and the stage 5 is, let's say, anxiety disorder?
I wish it was that clear cut. I wish human emotions were that well drawn that you can say that I am on stage 3 or stage 4.
I mean, this is like so, confusing also in a way that if you see, like if as a mother, I see my kid feeling anxious in performing little tasks, do I straight away get him to a doctor and figure out if it is a disorder or it's just a general anxiety or just trying to figure out things in his own way kind of a thing? How does one tackle with all this? It's kind of like you said, it's a double-edged sword, and it's for the person who's going through it and for the people who are living with it, with that person. It doesn't do good to any of those, this half information.
The way I see it is, imagine you're going to the gym. There is always another level of health. I try to think of mental health in the same way. So at any stage of life, there is a certain level of mental weight you can carry. And beyond that, you will struggle. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you've not been trained. There is a difference. And somehow in the gym, everybody understands this. 15-year-old boy, first time in the gym, going there and trying to lift 300 kgs. Everybody would laugh.
Of course.
But 15-year-old boy, for the first time giving a high pressure exam, like 10th, up till then, all his exams were grades. He just kept passing. And for the first time, he's sitting for a competitive exam. Now, subjectively speaking, how much pressure is he taking for that exam is up to him. And for him, that exam could be the equivalent of a 300 kg weight.
True.
And
Interesting
everybody
perspective.
around him says, why aren't you doing this? And if he crumbles, his mind is unable to bear that weight of the exam. And if he crumbles, the kind of sympathy he will get is nothing. They'll just think, oh, you're weak. But he's just not been trained to take that weight. So I don't believe anybody has... We have to start thinking of mental health more like physical health. Train yourself properly. Understand what you can do and what you cannot do. Understand that if you can't do something now, does not mean you can't do something 2 years later. You just need to be trained. You just need to understand what resilience is, what rest is, what recovery is, what taking a break is. All of these things are important. And we instinctively understand it when it comes to the body. But we somehow instinctively don't understand it when it comes to the mind. We think that we are all perfect in our minds. We think all of us have 100% resilience. We think we can take anything or nothing.
In a relationship, let's say, if two people are together and one of them is going through, let's say, some sort of an issue, let's say an anxiety issue or whatever, the other person is not able to find a connect with this person at all. And then the whole lot of morality comes in between. This person wants to venture out and, seek comfort in someone else.
Sure.
How does this whole thing work then? Where are we heading as as people? This is just so, I don't even have the word for it, it's just such a weird territory to sort of navigate through, because people say, like, I was recently talking to a friend of mine, and she was talking about the husband not being responsible or responsive towards her, and she having a need to not get into another relationship, but probably seek some comfort in some sort of a friendship, which is
Right.
more than a friendship or whatever, outside of her marriage.
Right.
Now, this is a very tricky situation. Now, she's like, I'm in so much of a mental distress that I don't know who to talk to. I mean, as basic a need as talking and communicating to your partner is not happening, because the person is going through this and it is his blind spot.
Yeah.
He doesn't recognize it. He doesn't see it. Now, for you to say that to someone is also not fair, that you have this problem. I mean, the person has to come to a realization of it on his own, probably. Or I don't know what's the way out. What's the advice that one could give here? And how does this whole dynamic work, including morality or, neurology and psychology and all of that twisting together here in this situation?
I think without complicating it too much, the dynamic between two people living together has always been a tricky one.
Absolutely.
And this is not new. Probably ever since the concept of marriage or the concept of a family unit came in, there has always been this interpersonal dynamic that existed within families. And this existed between as many number of people are there in a household. So mother and father, father and son, mother and daughter, between every dynamic, there is that sense of conflict of what I want, what they want, and what we want. It's usually
what
always
others
that.
want out of us also.
And what others want.
That also is into the equation.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the thing is, the real challenge in any relationship is communication. How easily can you communicate whatever it is that is on your mind? Even with yourself. So I've realized more and more that any couple who is going through a problem, chances are that one or both of them have been lying to themselves quite a lot. And they say that they want certain things, but they actually want something else. And for whatever reason, they have not accepted that. They may say it, but they've not accepted it.
Communication, Sid, as much of a barrier it is between two people. And I think a lot can be solved when you have this communication going between the two of you. But it also becomes a blind spot for you to see that my not communicating is a problem. You see that as a way of life, because that's the family you've grown up in, or that has worked for you being this particular way. That's why you do what you do, to a point that you don't know that it's not working out for others in your equation, and you are being detrimental to your own self. You're not having fulfilled relationship per se. You can never have, right? If others are not happy with you, that relationship is never going to be fulfilled,
right,
however much you want it to be, or you feel that you are.
Correct.
So neither you are having a fulfilled relationship yourself, or the other lives that you're impacting, those are also taking a toll. So how do you communicate to that person and get this to them that we should enhance or work on this area of our life? I mean, it's just too tough, because I've seen it in my family itself. That the getting through somebody, getting them to talk, or making them see this as a problem. They just say, "Hoti to hai baat, sab kuch to hai theek." I mean, how do you go beyond that?
Denial is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a very difficult terrain to sort of navigate in.
Yeah. If you are in conflict with yourself, you cannot have a smooth relationship with somebody else. All relationships are built on top of each other.
What if the person doesn't know that he's in conflict with himself?
Then they're very happy. Then it's good. It's great.
But they have everything breaking apart amidst or amongst them.
Yeah.
Yet they're in that denial that everything is working.
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
So, see, at the end of the day, you cannot tell somebody else how to live their life. Okay? That's what I've understood. That you can sort things out for yourself, and you can help how much ever you can. But at the end of the day, I believe that every single human being has a fundamental right to live their life in the way they want, even if you think that is self-destructive. Because that is what autonomy means. So if there is somebody who is drinking, and they are drinking their way to death, at every point you can try and help. You can talk to them, you can talk to the family, you can help them get enrolled in a de-addiction program. You can speak to their relatives about, what else can we do if they're drinking for a particular reason, if they don't have money, maybe you can solve that problem.
Yeah, this all can be solved when you can talk to them.
Correct.
What if you just can't talk to them? Then
At the end of the day, if that person wants to drink their way to death, they will. And we have to accept that, because otherwise we will take responsibility over something that we never really had power, control, or responsibility for. Right. So at the end of the day, if two people are simply unable to communicate and they don't wish to communicate, then that is their choice. I do fundamentally believe that. That doesn't mean that we don't offer help, because that is how the system is. You cannot live somebody else's life for them.
True.
We all have to live our own life based on, at some level, at some biological level, the choices that we make.
There is so much guilt that we accumulate because of morality coming in between, that, like you said, that a person is drinking his way to death, but you being the daughter, like my father, you being the daughter, you feel sort of obligated
Of course.
that it's on you to pull him out of that rut.
Yeah.
And this question that whether he wants to come out of it or not, that is then obliterated,
Yeah.
It's not even considered.
Correct.
And then you take so much of this guilt and you're processing the guilt, and then it is changing so much of wiring in your brain. It
Yeah.
is showing up in so many different ways in your relationship, at
Right.
your work, with your friends, with your planning for your future, whatever. It's just such a messed up situation. It took me many years to come to terms that I cannot help.
Yeah.
I want to help. I want things to get better, but I cannot. I think walking away or cutting cords in a way, not that breaking the relationship, but cutting cords with the guilt is what I'm saying, is something that also needs to be talked about more.
So this is the essence of stoicism. And I believe it's a beautiful concept, because as human beings, we have a need to control. Control makes us happy. Let me rephrase that. Control makes us think that we are happy.
True.
Okay. Or thinking that we have control, or the illusion of control, makes us happy. So I will walk into a room, and if everything looks under control, I'm okay. But if there's a raging fire somewhere, I'm uncertain. Now I'm anxious, right? Because I can't control that fire.
True.
If you tell me that there's a poisonous cobra somewhere in this room, even if I can't see it, I won't be sitting comfortably here, because that's something I can't control. So we want to control everything around us. So even if there's an illusion of control, we will be very happy. I feel that one of the reasons why we try so hard to fix something is because we feel that we can't control it, and that is making us unhappy. We have to come to terms with what can we control and what can we not. There are certain things that we can't control. We have to accept that. Because many times what happens is we spend way too much time and energy on things we can't control, and we ignore the things we can. And overall, your life is worse off because of it. So in this case, if there's a family member who would not stop drinking, because we are so frustrated with our lack of control, many people will prefer cutting off entirely, because they are unable to remain in that zone where they're trying and they're not able to do it.
True.
Right? But then I believe that's also not
The
ideal.
best way or the ideal way.
Correct.
Of
Because,
course.
and this is where I really find a lot of sense in Bhagavad Gita's core
Yes.
advice, which is just do your job.
Yeah, empathy and compassion shouldn't be conditional.
Just do your job. What is your role in that moment? What is your role? What do you think is your role? You do that. And whether or not that action has the intended effect or not, that is not in your control. So somehow I'm in awe of how Stoicism as a philosophy was described in the Bhagavad Gita so many, many years ago.
Right.
And even today, that fundamental truth still holds. Understand what you can control and what you can't. And one of the things you can't control is the result of your actions. What you can control is your action. Focus on your action, and over time you will find that your life is better.
Right. And like I was saying, this empathy and compassion shouldn't be conditional. This is something that I learned personally from my own journey, that, we are empathetic and compassionate towards people until a point we feel that we can control them or
Yeah.
we can make them do what we want to do. When
Yeah.
that control goes loose, we're like, this person
Yeah.
is the worst,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
Like,
so
I love
think-
you as long as you're replying to my texts.
Hmm.
If you stop replying, then I don't love you anymore.
It's a whole lot
So
of
was
work.
that love?
Yeah, it's a whole lot of work to develop that kind of compassion and empathy.
Correct.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, but I know if you scratch the surface, at least something will start to happen there.
Yeah.
This awareness. I think a lot of things can become better when they come in your awareness.
Yeah.
A lot of these things, since they are in our blind spots, we do nothing about them.
And the reason that they are in our blind spots is because having them there keeps us safe.
True.
You don't want to keep thinking of the things that you don't have control over. You would much rather ignore them. Which is why we don't think about rising sea levels, for example. Is it really in our control? Do we know? Is there something we can do? Let's not think about it. We don't think about climate change. We don't think about a lot of things. I mean, and this I'm talking in a global level. If there's nothing we can do, it's so much easier to ignore it. It's that ostrich phenomenon, put your head in the sand. That's what we do. And it's for our own protection. Because otherwise, it would literally drive us crazy. If we keep thinking about all the things we can't control, it will drive us crazy. It will paralyze us. This is called it's called decision paralysis. Where if there are too many things to decide, you will not be
able to decide anything.
There's a poem, I forgot the poem, but the concept it's called the centipede's dilemma. So centipede has around 100 legs,
yeah.
and it's walking around. And if you ask the centipede, wait, how do you know which leg you will put forward next? Now it suddenly can't walk because it's so confused.
Otherwise, it's a mechanism.
Otherwise, it's just going along.
Yeah.
So that's how we live. Most of us, that's how we live. Just through habit.
I want to also talk about death.
Okay.
Because you are a neurologist, you understand the workings of this brain. There are so many neurological disorders that happen and they get triggered and things happen. And I just very recently lost a friend to an epileptic attack, which is unheard of, which is like, I spoke to my other doctor friend and she said, this is extremely, extremely rare. It doesn't happen. So, how does one deal with that grief? Because a lot of us are grieving even still. B, how do you sort of preempt these situations and take some corrective measures for them or for yourself? How do you safeguard yourself, basically, is what I'm trying to ask.
It's a difficult question because, and it links with our conversation around control. There are certain things that we don't expect. And death is fundamental to it. Because as much as we know that death is inevitable, somewhere in our minds, we believe we are immortal. We do. We live as if we are immortal.
It is such a complicated paradox that we are going through.
Yeah. And the reason that we think we're immortal is because if we actually were to think about it, that we're going to die, then why do anything? Why struggle? So if a tiger is coming to eat us, why run away? If it's inevitable, कि मरना ही है,
तो
so
खाने
why
दो उसे।
fight? But if you don't fight, then you won't live for even that much time to have a kid or to procreate or do anything in the world. And if you don't do that, then your species will not grow. So you need to live in the illusion of immortality for long enough for your species to grow.
Till death catches you.
Till death catches you. And then when it catches you, you're surprised. Like, oh, aisa kaisa ho gaya? Because we are still caught up in that illusion of immortality. Although consciously we say that we know, but emotionally we still believe that we are immortal. Because we are always surprised. That, oh, how did this happen? It has happened to every single person who has ever been alive since the beginning of time. Always. The timing might be different, the way might be different, but it is inevitable. We will all die. But even when I'm saying this, these are just words. I consciously know this.
Hmm.
But if there's a fire, I will run
Hmm.
because I believe that I'm immortal.
Right.
Right? I believe that if I'm running from this fire, now nothing can harm me.
Nothing can happen to me.
Right? So this is the fundamental conflict of human existence. We know that we will die, but at the same time, we think we'll be immortal. And similarly, we think that the people around us will be immortal. So if you meet somebody, you never think that they will die. And so when they die, it is always a shock. Like, how did this happen? So it is like you have an idea of reality and that reality breaks, which is why every death is shocking. Because it reminds us that if that person can die, that means I can die.
can too.
And we don't want to be reminded of that. We don't want to be reminded of our own mortality. And this is not true just for other human beings. This is true even of inanimate objects. When something breaks, when something falls, when we lose something, they all kind of remind us of, oh, things can go. Basically, any kind of loss reminds us that things can go. And that is not a comfortable thought because we believe that things won't go. We believe things will stay. And it is a very childlike thought. You know how kids play peekaboo? Like, your mother is there and suddenly she's not there. Like, oh, where's my mom? And then your mom comes back. Oh, you're happy. Right from there, children are surprised when their mother disappears. We never really grow out of that. We truly believe that things will be there. And when things go away, we are surprised.
Thank you for watching the clips. Watch the full video from the link in the description box. If you like our videos and content, make the comment section your friend. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. We will meet you in our next episode. Till then, master your inner world with The Journey Within by Shobha Rana.